Hi, I'm Sajana, and in 10 minutes or less, I'm going to give the first of three sermon assignments for one of my Christian Scriptures 1 summer classes. Um, this passage that I'm going to talk about today comes from the Old Testament book of Exodus. And it talks about the people, the chosen people of God, the Hebrew Israelite people there, and how God rescued them from slavery. If you read the book of Exodus, it tells you all about this pretty fantastic story of how the Lord delivered this group of people. You may have heard of the plagues and the crossing of the Red Sea. That is all here in the book of Exodus. But what I'm going to focus on today, because there's a whole lot in this book, and I'm talking about 10 minutes, so I'm going to focus on the passage from Exodus 15, starting at verse 22. This passage right here, just to set it up, happens right after they're rescued, or not rescued, just basically just delivered by the strong hand of the Lord after he delivered the last plague in killing all the firstborn sons, except for the ones that followed his instructions, which were to put on the doorposts of their house the blood of a perfect 1-year-old lamb. That lamb's blood paved the way for them to be saved. And so after that happened, basically the Hebrew Israelite, the people then plundered. It says the text, they plundered the Egyptians when they got ready to leave, because the Egyptians gave them all of these things that they would go, please go. There was a lot of death and a lot of sadness at that time. So they hurriedly left. But then it came up to the Red Sea, or the Reed Sea, and they cried out and complained, like, what? You brought us here to die, by the sea? Because, how would they cross a gigantic body of water like that, except for by the hand of the Lord? Again, you can read about that earlier in the book of Exodus. But after they miraculously crossed this body of water, and then the Egyptians who started to pursue them, the soldiers started to pursue them, and they also crossed, or were crossing the body of water, when the water then God closed that body and they all drowned. That's pretty powerful, right? And it's written here in the text. So after that happened and they realized, wow, then there's a praise break here in Exodus 15. And this translation, which is NRSV, is called, they added the title of the Song of Moses and the Song of Miriam, where they're like recounting all that has happened through song. And right after that is the text that we're going to talk about today, which is Exodus 15, starting at verse 22. Let me read it here. It says, "Then Moses ordered Israel to set out from the Red Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur. They went 3 days into the wilderness and found no water." Can you imagine, after leaving in a hurry with all your stuff, all your livestock, all of your children, everyone trekking along, no AC, probably riding animals. They're like going along in the heat. There is no water after 3 days. And it says they found no water in this trip. So it makes me wonder, they were probably looking for water and they found no water. Verse 23, when they came to Marah, they could not drink the water of Marah because it was bitter. That is why it was called Marah, which means bitterness. And the people complained against Moses, saying, "What shall we drink?" Verse 25, he cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. There the Lord made for them a statute and an ordinance, and he put them to the test. He said, if you will listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is right in his sight, and give heed to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will not bring upon you any of the diseases, remember the plagues, that I brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. Verse 27, then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they camped there by the water. So did they get water? Yes, they did. But it didn't come the way they thought. So now they're free, though. They're free, right? They were previously enslaved by the Egyptian people. And if you look back in the book of Exodus, it gives you an indication of how bad their life was. I'm just going to read a verse in chapter 1, kind of to say, verse 11, therefore they set taskmasters over them to oppress them with forced labor. They built supply cities for Pharaoh, right? So also in verse 16, it indicates also the kind of trouble that they were in. It says, when you act as midwives to the Hebrew women, this is what the king of Egypt says according to verse 15. When you act as midwives to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it is a boy, kill them. But if it is a girl, they shall live. So the king Pharaoh was giving directives to kill some of their people and forcing others into labor. Their life wasn't easy. That's why they were crying out for deliverance, and God responded. And here they are, free. Or are they? That's the question. Are they free? That's what I wanted to sort of bring up. Now, I thought about this, or in talking about this, because there's a Bible commentary called the Africana Bible. And in it, different scholars talk about the different books of the Bible. And then the book of Exodus, Dr. Judy Fincher's Williams is the one that in 6 pages kind of gives her thoughts on the book of Exodus. So, but I wanted to read a few sentences from her commentary here, which I thought was pretty good, but I can't go over it all right now. But I just want to say this. It's found on page 85. It says, this first experience of freedom, which is the passage that I just read, which happened right after their praise break, remember? This first experience of freedom is a bitter one, as the Israelites learned what it means to be bought with a price. They were freed from Egypt, but now belong to Yahweh. They used to serve Pharaoh, but now they must serve Yahweh, and this God has the ability to inflict plagues as well as to heal. Moreover, their first experience of freedom reminds Israel that there is much to learn about this God. After all, what kind of God leads thirsty people to water they cannot drink? And remember what happened after they got to that body of water. If you remember from the text, what did they do? They cried out together, corporately. They cried out to God's representative. They cried out to God. They were lamenting, moaning, complaining, speaking out, angry, showing they were crying out about where can we get water to drink? And this crying out is called, in commentaries, it's called murmuring. Murmuring. I've never heard this term before, but there's a lot of things I haven't heard of. But I like this term because it's more than just complaining. They had a legitimate need, and they were expressing their problem and situation to the one that could do something about it, to God. And so that is murmuring. And corporately, they murmured. And Moses, as God's representative there, then brought that directly to the Lord. And the Lord then told Moses what to do. Take that stick, throw it in the water, and then it was fine for them to drink. And then also at that same time, the Lord told them what he expected of them to do. So again, now they're free. Or are they? When the commentary, Dr. Judy Fentress Williams said they were bought with a price, I just wanted to end this short talk with this New Testament verse from 1 Peter. 1 Peter 1:18-19 says, "You know that you were ransomed from the futile ways inherited from your ancestors, not with perishable things like silver or gold, but with the precious blood of Christ, like that of a lamb without defect or blemish." Like that of a lamb. God was foreshadowing what would happen all the way in the beginning of their freedom journey, when in Exodus 12 he gave them the directions for their first Passover. So, something to think about. Are we free? Absolutely, we're free. We've been ransomed and saved, bought with a price by the precious blood of Jesus. So now we're called to live holy lives, because that's what God, who saved us, has called us to do.